Hello, my friends. It's been a little while since we've had a new episode out. As I explained in I think the last episode I put out, we were waiting on my daughter to be born, and in the 2 weeks since I've been on here, and we've put out a new episode, she's been born healthy and really gaining weight. So that's a blessing. Of course, it's been stressful, and there's been an awful lot going on. I'm not going to go into all the details right here and now, but maybe later on I'll fill you all in. But suffice it to say, the past couple weeks have been really stressful and really busy. Now, she's okay. She's doing well overall, generally speaking, but there's a lot of things going on, and I'll just leave it at that. But I wanted to kind of bounce back talking about something of substance and of actual value. It's very easy today to get really wrapped up in the fluff that passes for news. Uh, I'm sure nobody really wants to talk about the impeachment, and maybe you do want to talk about the impeachment, but really I don't have a whole lot to say about it. If you've been following the trial, as I briefly have here and there in the news, and I've been watching some of the live broadcasts on YouTube, there's really not a whole lot of substance there. I mean, if you followed at all what was going on in the House, then you know that the Democrats, the House manager's case, the people that have been brought over to represent the case to the Senate, like Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler and these others, they have no real substance to their case. In fact, some of the things that they say directly sabotage they scuttle their own arguments. For example, Adam Schiff just recently, I think it was today, in presenting argument and answering questions, or no, he was asked the question by, I think, Lindsey Graham. Uh, he was asked a question, and Adam Schiff said, "It is impeachable that Donald Trump wanted to investigate a political rival in Joe Biden." Not realizing, of course, Adam Schiff did not realize the irony in him saying that, because that was exactly what happened to Donald Trump at the hands of the Obama administration. It was the Obama administration that paid for foreign research. Uh, the research of a foreign agent, namely Christopher Steele, through Fusion GPS and other entities, to gather research against a political opponent that was then used as the main basis for the FBI and other government agencies opening an investigation and surveillance of the Trump campaign. So the irony and the hypocrisy here is just staggering. They either have zero self-awareness or they're not interested in truth and honesty. I can imagine which one. In fact, it's probably both of them. But anyway, so it's not really worth discussing, actually, what's going on in the Senate. We know that he's going to be cleared, or not convicted. We know that there's no way you're going to get. I think it would take 20 Republican senators to flip to convict Donald Trump. That's not going to happen. The only thing that's really up in the air is whether they're actually going to call witnesses or not. I just saw some guy I follow on Twitter, Matt Couch, was just saying that Mitch McConnell's now saying that he has the votes to block a vote for witness. He has enough votes to just kill this right now, which is what they should do. This is absolutely ridiculous. So that's the only real suspense. Will they call witnesses or not? And there's a sick side to me that says, yes, call witnesses. We'll bring in Adam Schiff, put him under oath. The whistleblower should be subpoenaed. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden. Let's bring them all in. You want to get dirty? Let's get dirty. But that's not what's good for the country. Uh, yeah, even in the new episodes, I still hit the camera. But that's not in the best interest of the country, or the country, the nation at large. There are far bigger fish to fry, like the opioid crisis that is ongoing and has been largely ignored by Congress in light of what they are trying to accomplish by impeachment. There's some sort of ban on fentanyl right now that's up in the air. It passed bipartisan vote in the Senate, and now it's waiting to be voted on in the House. If I got that right. And the House is just, they're so busy with this impeachment crap and nonsense that they've done nothing with it. And meanwhile, thousands and thousands of Americans are dying at the hands of drugs. These so-called deaths of despair, which I think is a very adequate name for it. When you suck the meaning out of life, I mean, all that's left is an empty pursuit of pleasure to replace a very real, objective sense of meaning in life. Um, but one thing I wanted to kind of talk about, that, it's very easy, and because I have a history in addiction, I sympathize very greatly with those who have suffered at the hands of opiate addiction, particularly, but any form of addiction I sympathize with, and I always want to see people get help, and the whole 9 yards. I want to see people get off of this stuff and never get involved in drugs ever again. But that being said, there's something I think that's overlooked, and it's kind of been brought to my attention viscerally, by real life, and that's the selfishness of addiction. So a lot of people that get involved in addiction actually, um, we tend to emphasize the addicts as victims, and I think to an extent they are victims, but there's a very real side to it that we need to remember, and that's that addiction, initially at least, is a choice, and that, while there's always debate over whether addiction is a disease, they're still searching for the addict gene, the addict DNA that will be able to point out, this person's born an addict, this person, and then we can start treating, medically. I think, some of that is true, and some of that's not. I think there's a lot of desire in our country today to assign, uh, to call things psychological and mental issues that are really moral problems. And addiction is more of a moral problem than a psychological illness, I think. But the so we again we tend to just make addicts out to be victims, and I think that there's a lot going on in society today that really, does not help people stay away from addiction, to put it mildly. And in fact, I'm writing a book on that right now, researching the book anyway, to write it. But what gets lost in the shuffle is the other victims, which are the families, of addiction, and they're not just victims of the drug itself, as in the family members are victims of Percocet or heroin or crack cocaine. No, they're the victims of the behavior of the addict. And what also gets lost in the conversation is the way in which, addicts' behavior has such far-reaching consequences. So your addiction today can affect people that aren't even born yet, years down the road, and it is possible. I know this from firsthand experience. Um, I'm not going to elaborate from personal, give out personal details, but somebody can get on a maintenance program or something, and then have a child, as we just did, and that child is then dependent on a substance or another, and then has to go through the very real process of withdrawal. A child that was not born and had no knowledge of his or her parents' addiction, an addiction that was started years prior to maybe a marriage or the conception of a child. And so these actions, we tend to forget that, addicts rationalize things very well. We rationalize, ourselves in order to defend ourselves from the guilt of knowing that we're harming other people besides just ourselves. We tend to make ourselves believe that the only person that's being harmed is myself, and this is my body, and I'll do what I want with it. This is my life, and I'll do what I want with it. That's what we tend to make ourselves believe, so that we feel better as we're taking X and Y and Z, whatever substance floats your boat. Um, but the real truth is that it's a selfishness, because people that care about you are always inevitably dragged into it. As much as I used to tell my family, don't get involved, don't get involved, but they're your family, they're going to get involved, and I knew at some level that no matter what, they would get involved. So it was incredibly selfish to still continue doing what I was doing, even though they were getting dragged into the mess, and trying to help, but then I would continue on. So this idea that victims, or that addicts are just pure victims, let's not forget that there is a great deal of responsibility that needs to be put on the shoulders of me as an addict, or anybody else. We tend to shirk in this country the idea of personal responsibility. Nobody wants to be responsible for their behavior anymore. This idea of moral responsibility, nobody wants it. Everybody's a victim. Everything is everybody else's fault. We're always the victim of some form of menace in society, some form of bigotry or anger, or malpractice, or just anything. Somebody else is to blame for every action we take, and that's just simply not true. And the reality is that when we behave selfishly, as addicts generally do, there are many victims, not just the addict themselves, but family members, everybody else gets affected, all the way down to children you haven't even had yet, who are then brought into this world of addiction, who had no knowledge of it, did not ask to be part of it, and now sucked into it. And their world is irrevocably changed because of it. Inevitably, there's no way to change that. You can't be sucked into a world of addiction and not be changed by it. That's just impossible. That's the nature of the beast. It changes things. No matter what. So I think that that's something that addicts need to be much more honest about. We tend to blame everybody else for our mistakes, when the reality is that we made, whether you've been an addict for 10 years or 20 years or 15 years or just 2 years, in the beginning, there was a conscious decision on your part to pick up the drug. You can't get around that. You can't deny it. Nobody was forced into it. Now, as things progress, as you move down that road and get into that life, it is much, much harder to change. There's no denying that it completely changes who you are, makes you physically, mentally, psychologically, every way you could be dependent on something. It changes you and makes you a slave and dependent to that substance. But the initial action is always yours, mine, or whoever else. You made a moral, conscious choice. And so that's why if an addict does something like robbing a store, they are always responsible for that and should suffer the consequences in prison or whatever. There's just no denying that. And I think, again, we just tend to forget these things. We tend to rationalize because everybody's in such a rush to be a victim and to not accept responsibility for their behavior, no matter how horrific it may be, no matter how hard it may be to look at. That's where character comes in. That's where growth comes in. However painful it may be, you have to look at what you did and accept it and acknowledge, I did this, and own up to it, and ask forgiveness and try to change. Now you have to accept the consequences regardless of what happened, but moving on and fixing it and repairing it and remanding and making reparations and changing, those are all things that are indicative of growth. They exhibit growth and development, which is something else, which is, you don't see a whole lot in the country anymore today amongst people my age. This idea of adolescence, that it used to be that kids, by the time they were 13, 14, 15 years old, they were helping out on the farm. Even before then, driving their dad's pickup truck. They would be, once school was out, they were working. It's not like that anymore. People don't consider themselves adults anymore until they're 30 years old, until they're in their mid-30s. Adolescence is now all the way into your 30s. You're not supposed to take life seriously anymore when you're in your 20s. That's still playtime. This over pampered generation, this over pampered country, the entire Western culture is this over pampered, narcissistic generations that keep coming up thinking that life should be handed up to us on a silver platter. It's utterly ridiculous. Um, So yeah, that's something I'm going to be addressing in this book that I'm writing is the not only the consequences of addiction, but also the responsibility the addict has to shoulder as the person that made the conscious choice, 99% of the time, the conscious choice to become an addict. Well, not to become an addict, but to use said substance. Almost always the case. Now, there's the rare situation, although it's becoming increasingly less rare, of like, say, the senior citizen who's prescribed OxyContin by their healthcare professional, their doctor, their friend, their drug dealer. Um, who then provides them or prescribes them with Oxycontin, doesn't tell them how addictive it is, and then cuts them off. What do you think is going to happen? You know, they're going to be miserable, and of course, they're going to do what they got to do to not be miserable. That's just what happens. That's life. That's not the behavior of an addict. That's the behavior of a rational person trying to escape pain. It starts out rational and gets increasingly irrational as you have to do more and more crazy things to not feel pain. But still, that can happen, and it does happen. And it's been happening more and more as time goes on. These drug companies are making millions off of prescribing people narcotics. Just, you know, these pill mills just dousing everybody in Percocets and OxyContin. Uh, and the sad thing is that maintenance drugs like methadone or Suboxone, which are supposed to be there to treat people, to help wean them off of an addictive substance and help them readjust to life, normal life, like methadone. You give somebody methadone so that they can avoid heroin withdrawal and then slowly wean them off the methadone. And while they're being weaned off the methadone, this time there that they're given to readjust to normal life, to get their life together, to get a new job, to start taking care of fines, go to court, do whatever they have to do, serve a prison sentence. It gives you valuable time to start reordering and restructuring your life, and gives you time to get a grasp on what you value and to find importance and meaning in life again. That's how these things are supposed to be used, doled out responsibly by a provider, a clinic, a doctor. And what's happened inevitably instead is that a lot of these companies have gleefully decide to reap the rewards of addiction and make lots of money off of addicts. You know, there's always a new miracle drug. Suboxone, the company that made Suboxone, just got sued, I think, by the federal government and fined. They were either sued or fined by the federal government for $1.2 billion for lying to patients, for telling them that they're the strips. There's different forms of Suboxone. It's a maintenance drug that you take to keep you from withdrawing off heroin, and then they slowly wean you off. It's like methadone. But you have the strips, which you can put under your tongue and they dissolve, or you can take the pill. Well, when they came out with the strips, they told people that these strips were not as addictive as the actual pills themselves, were not as dangerous, less likely to overdose, all these types of things. None of which is true. They're just as addictive, just as likely to overdose. You have to be just as careful, all that kind of stuff. And so they were telling people this, you know, and people were, you know, everybody's going and getting the strips and finding out to their horror, they're just as addictive. There is no difference. This is still Suboxone. What the heck? And so now they're being fined or sued or whatever for to the tune of $1.2 billion, and they deserve it. And this is nothing new. Purdue, who first marketed OxyContin, did the very same thing in the mid '90s. Told people that this was a safe painkiller, not addictive, and everybody started taking OxyContin. And look what happened. The fallout was disastrous, and they were sued, into oblivion, and they darn well deserved it too. And I hope anyone else, I hope next time that happens, next time we have proof that a pharmaceutical company is taking advantage of patients, that they aren't just sued, but put in prison. They should be put in prison. And it's going on right now. There's other companies doing the exact same thing. Come on. Every time you turn on the TV, there's a new wonder drug that's out there. And then they read the side effects. This drug drug will treat depression, but don't take this drug if you have suicidal thoughts. May cause cancer, may cause liver damage, may cause your kidney, may cause renal failure, may cause stomach ulcers, may cause esophageal bleeding, may cause brain tumors and aneurysms and heat stroke, and blah, blah, blah. It just goes on and on and on. And until the list of things that it may cause actually far outweigh the benefits. I've heard some of them to where it'll be a drug like, let's say, treating stomach ulcers, and one of the side effects is stomach ulcers. You can't make this stuff up. And they say it deadpan during the commercial, just no expression, just may cause stomach ulcers. Like it's the most normal thing in the world to take something to cure a disease that may in fact cause the very disease that you're trying to cure. I mean, it's like Huxley's Brave New World, except it's Stupid New World. You can't make this stuff up. Um, but I don't know. You want to think that this country will be able to come to terms with, and actually do something substantial to stop the flow of drugs into the country. But I think that the I lose hope over the idea sometimes because the politicization, I can't even say that right now, just the politics involved is just, I mean, it's mind-blowing. First off, how are you going to cut the drugs off from coming into the country? They're coming across the border in Mexico. We can't even build a wall down there without fighting over it. They're not even letting Trump build a wall down there. Um, they won't stop the immigrants coming in. And if you do that, you're called a racist, a bigot, a xenophobe, everything under the sun. All because you want to stop the flow of drugs coming in from Mexico. And why is this controversial? All you have to do is look across the border and see what's going on in Mexico, and hey, like maybe we should vet the people coming across from there. The entire Mexican government is always on the verge of collapse because the cartels are warring and killing and assassinating and pillaging their way throughout. The cartels run Mexico. This is no secret, and yet we're called bigots for scratching our heads and saying maybe we should vet, maybe we should look more closely at who's coming across and why and when and how. Not to mention that the people that are coming across have told horrific stories about 80% of the women that try to come illegally into the country are raped by coyotes. Coyotes are the people that are paid by immigrants, illegal immigrants. They're usually foreigners themselves to ferry and ferret and sneak illegals into the country. And that a lot of the times they then turn on the women that they're sneaking across and rape them. 80% are sexually assaulted. Nothing is done about it. Nothing at all. Instead, we cry because supposedly there's not enough running water in some of the detention centers, as if that's the biggest issue going on right now. As thousands of Americans die and women are raped trying to cross the border illegally, we're worried about some water and bread in a detention center. And the fact that some children were in something that was constructed that looked sort of like a cage, blamed on Trump, was actually done during the Obama administration. You can't make this stuff up. You really can't. And the fentanyl coming from China, what's being done about that? I have no idea. President Trump wants to put sanctions on China, wants to actually win this trade war that we were in. I think he's now working out a deal with them now, but and he gets criticized for it. He wants to actually take China to task. They're stealing our information, doing all kinds of things. Besides the fentanyl that is coming from China over into America, besides that, Hong Kong is one of the main ports of trade for the ivory, the illegal ivory trade. As African elephants and rhinoceroses and other creatures in Africa, the Congo, Botswana, and other places like that, as they're increasingly poached off, virtually not a whole lot is done to stymie this illegal ivory trade that goes straight through Hong Kong. And the the Chinese government knows it, but what are they doing about it? Nothing, next to nothing. Token gestures at best. When environmentalists every once in a while, get all up in a tizzy, but on the whole, or animal rights activists, I should say, on the whole, what are they doing about it? Nothing. So is it any wonder that I have my doubts that the drug epidemic will actually we'll see the flow be reduced to a drip anytime soon. I just have my doubts, and that's besides the whole problem of the fact that many Americans actually want to be on drugs. It's not like this opiate crisis is so many Americans just unwilling. Whoa, we had no idea we were taking heroin. No, millions of Americans want to be on marijuana. They want to be on heroin. They want to be on Percocets, OxyContin, LSD, cocaine. They want to be drunk every weekend. The problem is that they want to be. So the legality of these substances is secondary, in my opinion. The main problem is that so many people want to be numb. They want to have their thinking short-circuited. They want to have their emotions subdued. Uh, there are so many reasons for this. Again, this is why I'm writing a book about it. But there are so many reasons for this. The reasons for why addiction is so prevalent and why it's not going anywhere are so far reaching, and they come from so many different angles that I don't know exactly how it can be fixed. I really don't. I know the moral issue can be addressed. That people have lost sight of the fact that we're made in the image of God, and that we have worth, intrinsic worth, and that in a sense our lives are not our own. Our bodies are not just ours to just throw away like a piece of trash, and to abuse until we have cirrhosis of the liver. Our lives are a gift from God, and so we have a responsibility to live them responsibly and in a way that pleases God. That's the whole point. As the Westminster Catechism says, what is the chief end of man? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And you're not going to do that if you're shooting heroin every day or you're drunk all the time. It's just that's antithetical. It's the antithesis of what you're supposed to be doing. Just read the Bible. The life of the drunkard is condemned all the time in Scripture. It's never a good thing to be a drunkard or an alcoholic in the Bible. So the problem is a moral one. The legality of it is secondary, in my opinion. And just briefly, this issue keeps popping its head up in conservative circles. The issue of pornography. I've done episodes several times in the past now. You all know that anyone who's listened to them know that I have a lot of disgust for the porn industry. But there's this continued debate. I listened to Breakpoint, which is the Breakpoint Center for Christian Fellowship, something to do with Christian culture. Chuck Colson founded it. It's a radio program. It's pretty popular in Christian circles. They just did an episode here a couple days ago talking about banning porn. Somebody, I forget who it was, some conservative philosopher, and I can't think of his name right now, just wrote a letter to Attorney General William Barr urging him to do something about the porn epidemic. Look, and just briefly, I view it in the same way that I view drugs and narcotics and alcohol on the whole, prostitution, all those things. Should I in no way argue that we should just, no laws, nothing whatsoever, just unfettered access. Anybody can do anything they want at any time, pure anarchy. No, absolutely not. But the banning something is never the solution to it if you have millions of people that want to view pornographic material. That is your problem, not the legality of it. Making it illegal is not going to stop anyone from viewing pornographic material. All it will do is force people to view pornographic material underground. That's all it's going to do. The same thing, if you want an example, the model example that everyone can go to is prohibition. All prohibition did was it didn't stop people from drinking, really. Anyone who wanted to drink still drank. They just got their alcohol from Al Capone or somebody like him. They went to the criminal underground for their drink. The same thing is going on right now with drugs, with marijuana. Well, marijuana is becoming legal, but largely for many, many years, People bought marijuana on the black market. I knew almost nobody that said, I don't smoke pot because it's illegal. You know, if somebody wants to smoke pot, they're going to smoke pot, period, regardless of the ramifications. And the ramifications can be beat. People beat P tests all the time for jobs, for PO officers, for whoever. People defeat those drug tests all the time. The drug tests are easy to beat. It's simple. It's not hard. And believe me, drug addicts are a very industrious group, so they find ways around those things very easily. And when they can't, they still smoke the weed and go to prison. They don't care. You know, nobody doesn't do it because it's illegal. The same thing will happen with pornographic material. Only the difference is that a lot of these, like Breakpoint and Matt Walsh and some of the others, they point to the fact that there are some sex slaves and sexual abuse within the porn industry. If you want more sex abuse and more sex slaves and more sexual abuse, yes, go ahead and make it illegal, because then the regulations will be taken completely away. Then what safety nets there are for these actresses will be completely taken away. At least in the porn industry, actresses are required to take to STD testing. They sign contracts. If there is actual legitimate rape or sexual abuse going on, because the porn industry is legal, they have no fear of going to a judge and suing somebody. You know, all these quote unquote benefits are there for the actresses, and these medical methods are taking place to prevent diseases on the whole. If you send it underground, which it will go, which is where it will go if you make it illegal, it will not disappear. It will just go underground. There's too much money there. Then there will not be STD testing. Disease and HIV particularly will spread rapidly. Sexual abuse will be commonplace, including rape and other forms of abuse. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The sex trade itself would explode if the porn. It's because the porn industry is legal and not inhibited by the law at all. That I see that as a kind of a blocker to the sex trade. Because why would somebody somebody that wants to make money off of sex, why wouldn't they just go into, why would they take the risk of going to prison and stealing women off the streets when they can just go to California and set up their own porn company legally and not have any of the risk of going to jail, capturing, stealing women? I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all. It surely does. But it's going to happen a lot more if you take away the legal porn industry. The same thing applies to prostitution. In Nevada, there are legal brothels there. So that if somebody, as immoral as it is, as sinful as it is, has chosen to sin and wants to go to a woman who has decided, not knowingly, consciously, to sin and sell her own body for sex, he can do it. But at least that way, you are not risking spreading STDs to victims who are, you know, not a part of conscious choice here. So as an example, you have two different scenarios. Let's say prostitution is completely illegal, even in Nevada. So a man is going to cheat on his wife, and no matter what, he's going to do this. He either goes to the brothel in Nevada where they're tested for STDs constantly, and meets up with a woman who has consciously decided that this is what she's going to do. She's not a victim. She hasn't been stolen off the street. She's decided this is how I'm going to make money, and he goes and does his thing and goes back home. Or the brothel gets shut down. He goes down some dark, seedy alley, picks up a woman who, heaven knows how she got there, is more than likely in those scenarios addicted to multiple drugs, has not been to a healthcare provider in heaven knows how long, cheats on his wife with her, goes home, gives his wife an STD. STDs do not always show themselves. So for years, his wife could have this STD wreaking havoc on the interior of her body before she knows about it. In the meantime, they could have kids. The disease is then passed on to the children. And so in the interest of the public good, it is better that the brothel be there than it it not be in the interest of the public good? No, no, in the interest of morality. That's why I argue that the legality of these things is secondary and almost inconsequential. The main problem here is that the man wanted to cheat on his wife. That's the main issue. Just like the drug issue, the people want to be numbed. They want to have so their thinking short-circuited, their anxiety removed, their perception of reality dimmed. That is the problem here, not whether the federal government has taken upon itself to determine for us what is pornographic and what is not, which is another problem with the whole debate over whether porn should be banned or not. What is the definition of porn? Anything that sexually stimulates somebody, that visually stimulates you sexually? So what you're saying then is that somebody who maybe enjoys viewing burlesque dancing, which is sexual in nature, or piano ballroom dancing, which is sexualized and sensual in nature and has skimpy clothing and the like, that person is then a criminal, and if you and is liable to penalty and fine and possible jail time if they persist in viewing burlesque or a Sports Illustrated calendar. That's pornographic technically, and that's now illegal. But if you say, okay, so you're fine with then finding those people, and if they refuse to comply, putting them in jail with actual rapists and murderers and robbers and the like, or in rehab. You want tax dollars spent for people that enjoy Sports Illustrated calendars. That's the problem here. There is no objective definition of pornographic material then, because then if you say, well, no, maybe not Sports Illustrated, come on, that's stupid. Well, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about hardcore porn. Okay, so let's leave the burlesque and let's leave the Sports Illustrated. And basically then you're right back to where we started in the 1950s and 60s, that slippery slope where it starts with Sports Illustrated and then one day we end up with gang rape or gang orgies and the like, the hardcore. So the people that want to ban porn are in an impossible catch-22 situation. Either you ban everything that sexually stimulates you visually, like Sports Illustrated calendars and burlesque dancers, and you put people like that produce it or view it, you either fine them monstrously, or if they persist, you put them in prison with actual rapists and murderers and robbers, or you say, oh, that's not really pornographic, okay, well, we just want to get rid of the hardcore stuff, and you leave that and you allow that slippery slope to exist so that in the future, not very long from now, we'll be right back where we started. It's an impossible situation, and people that really argue for banning porn have not thought it through. They're thinking with their emotion, and I find it very ironic that conservatives who always gnash and wail and grind their teeth at the concept of government playing daddy and mommy all of a sudden want the government to step in and do their parenting for them. Why are they not monitoring what their kids do on the internet? Why are they not looking at their children's internet browsing history or putting on restrictions or parental controls on their TV or on their cable viewing, or looking at what magazines their children subscribe to or buy from the drugstore down the street? Why all of a sudden do they want to neglect and give up and be lazy on their parenting? I find this, I cannot wrap my mind around the logic and the rationality and the consistency to say on the one hand, that I'm a conservative, I don't want the government being involved in my parenting, but then here, all of a sudden they want the government to step in and ban something which they can't even rationally define. And even if they did and said Sports Illustrated and all that stuff, then they're putting, your pimple-faced 17-year-old, fining him and putting him in prison for Sports Illustrated magazine and putting him in prison with other people that are actual rapists and murderers and turning him into a legitimate criminal over a Sports Illustrated calendar. They have not thought this through at all. Again, anyone who talks this way or thinks like this, do some research over the prohibition of alcohol. That is our prototype model for what it's like when you ban something outright. It does not work. The government has no business legislating the moral, the interior morality as far as vice and pleasure of its citizens. Now, if there's minors involved or something like that, by all means, but consenting adults, you cannot tell them what they can and cannot view. You just cannot do it. It will not work. The issue is the fact that they want to view it, not the fact that it's legal or illegal. And the argument that in the 1930s or the 1940s this stuff under obscenity laws used to be illegal does not hold water with me. I don't care what they did in the 1930s and 40s under the obscenity laws. Maybe those laws shouldn't have been there in the first place. It does not matter to me what we did in the past. What matters is now, and the fact that in the future they want to ban things like this, hypocritically, in my opinion. So I don't care about obscenity laws in the 1930s or 40s. All that means to me is that in the 1930s and 40s, people were viewing porn underground and in seedy dive bars, unregulated. Watching things that only heaven knows what they were viewing because there was no regulation and no oversight of it. So that says nothing to me. And again, I could care less what they used to do back then. Just because they did it in the 30s or 40s and they had obscenity laws back then, all of a sudden that means something to us today. Just because they did it back then, we need to do it now. No, make an argument based on the pure rationality and morality of your argument. Don't hearken back to what they used to do. Who cares? Means nothing. So anyway, I've rambled for long enough. Hopefully this has given you all some food for thought, particularly on the addiction thing. To anyone out there who's maybe suffering from addiction, even though it may be hard, just remember your actions too have unintended consequences for people now and in the future. They're victims, unintended victims, unintended consequences. And that's whether you want to admit it or not, whether you want to be in denial over it or not, it is on your shoulders. So it's time that we all take personal responsibility for our actions and repent of sin and turn from it and live the life that God meant us to. Again, the Westminster Confession says, not that that's the Bible, but I think it gives a good answer that what is man's chief end or what is man's purpose? To glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And you can't do that at the bottom of a bottle or in a heroin needle or in a brothel or in front of your computer watching pornographic material. Legal or illegal, those things do not glorify God. I think we can all agree on that at the very least. So, good night and God be with you.